I'm told that IPSOS is now ready for the release of the results. We'll be listening in, and of course, at the end of it all, I still have Vincent here, and we'll be talking about it. For now, let's go to Riverside at the IPSOS headquarters, where the event is currently ongoing.
And then we had constitutional and human rights violations. So, and then the confidence ratings. So if you didn't get this survey, you don't know where it is, and you'd like to do a story now, please let us know. And we'll be happy to send it out to you again. So without any further interferences, I will let my colleague Eli welcome you and just explain what I said at the beginning, but also a little bit about methodology. Thanks, Eli.
Okay, thank you, Tom. My name is Eli Chanzu. I work at the IPSOS Public Affairs Department, and part of my job is management of what you call the opinion polls, the social, political, and economic survey, that I work hand in hand with Tom in terms of, getting the tools ready, analysis, and reporting. So, as Thomas said, welcome to our 7th release. It's not a new release, and this is our second in-house release that we are doing for this survey. So, I'll go straight to the methodology. I think time is of essence now that we have started roughly some minutes or hours late. So this is what we are going to release today in terms of contents, and we have the methodology, demographics, we have political party coalition, alignment, and reasons. We'd want to look at, which political parties do Kenyans feel close to or aligned to, and what are these reasons? The political feature of prominent leaders. There are a couple of leaders that are in this release in terms of how likely are they going to be president, in terms of the perception of Kenyans. We also have the awareness and vote preference for actual and potential presidential candidates. That is what you guys have been waiting for and calling me and Tom now and then. So it's here today. And lastly, the perceived capacity and commitment of actual and potential presidential candidates to successfully address key policy areas. For example, strengthening the rule of law in terms of defending the Constitution and reducing inequality, to mention but a few. So, cautionary point, as you said, this is not...
1 second, just keep talking. I think this might be the wrong presentation. This is the wrong one, sorry.
So as Tom mentioned, this is not a new survey. So there are some events that, happened within the survey dates and after the survey dates. So please do not report, a new survey that was done, the other day. So we did this survey between the 9th and the 26th of January, and we think it is important, to remind you that there are some events that happened in between data collection and after that were not fully captured, in the data. So please, as you report, be mindful of some of these issues that we mentioned, and of course, we get these issues from you. Okay, so I'll go straight to the methodology. The sample size for this survey was 2,057, and to get that number, we had to contact 4,979, individuals or contacts to get 2,057 successful interviews, which form part of this release. Our methodology, something that is very important when we are looking at, survey results. We did a random selection, which was multi-stage, stratified using PPS, proportional to population size. We just look at the next slide that, tries to show us what do we mean when we talk about proportional to population size. And of course, the population universe, that is the target sample, was Kenyan adults who are 18 years and above, living in urban and rural areas of Kenya. The data collection methodology was face-to-face interviews and at the household level. Something else that is very important is the sampling error, according to the sample that we collected. Sampling error, which is the measure of precision of the results, was plus or minus 2.16 at 95% confidence level. The language of interviews, we had English, Swahili, and Somali. Somali predominantly, spoken in the northeastern region of Kenya. And just to touch on finance, it has been an issue of discussion in different forums, and it's very important that we disclose this. So all the results related specifically to this survey, and the questions that were loaded were funded, by IPSOS, owned and funded by IPSOS as an organization under the omnibus, survey method. By omnibus survey method, I mean, we gathered several people into one questionnaire, but the results that we are releasing are owned by IPSOS, okay? So there's no party that funded the results that we are going to release. I hope that is clear. Then this is the sample allocation. As you can see, according to the 2009 census, 13% of the population, is in Central. So when we take our sample of 2057, we apportion that sample 13% to Central. So that is just part of the PPS that I was talking about. And this is the Kenya population density map. And as you can see, the dark dots is where the population, of Kenya lies. And this is a reflection of what we collected in terms of data. And this is a GIS map, just showing where we went to in terms of data collection. And the data was collected across 42 counties, okay? So the sample was allocated proportionally according to the 8 regions, but it was collected across 42 counties, not in 42 counties, okay? Is that clear? So I'll proceed. Quality control is one of the key things that IPSOS, is proud of practicing during data collection of several surveys, including the national surveys. And these are some of the quality control measures that we take to ensure that what we give out, to the general public and to the media is of good quality and shows a true result. The demographics of our respondent describes, different aspects of the population. One of them being gender and age, religion, and setting that we are going to look at. So it's very important as you interact with data and different survey results, you need to interrogate these aspects of survey results that you receive from different entities and institutions. So as you can see, roughly slightly more than slightly more than a third of our respondents are mainstream Protestants in terms of religion. And 1 in 10 of our respondents were evangelical Christians. In terms of gender, which are the key parameters when we are looking at, weighting of the data and distribution of the data, we had 51% of the sample being female and male, which is representative of the 2009 census. And age, we see a plurality, almost a third of our respondents being of age 25 to 34 years. In terms of settings, we see almost 2/3 of our respondents, living in rural parts of Kenya. And these two parameters, gender and settings, are very critical when it comes to weighting of our data. The main source of household income, almost a third of Kenyans are into self-employment or are business owners or traders. And as you can see, just 19% of Kenyans are into private sector and public sector in terms of their main source of household income. Straight to employment status. Unemployment is a major issue in Kenya, and as you can see, almost a quarter of the population in Kenya of adults who are 18 years and above are actually unemployed, and a plurality are self-employed. And we asked this question: what is the main source of self-employment? And you can see a plurality of Kenyans are into agricultural produce marketing, and
So,
just a
Ellie, if you go
few
back one
into
slide.
tailoring.
Just notice the previous slide on the right, main source of household income, that's not the individual respondent who's being interviewed is necessarily doing that job. It is for the whole household, whether the person's living alone or whether there are 10 people, of those who are working, where's most of the income on a monthly basis coming from for that household as a whole. That's why we don't have any unemployed people in that slide.
Okay. When you look at the level of education, we see more than a quarter of Kenyans have completed secondary, and we have sent you these demographic profiles. That's why I do not want to take too much of my time going through that. And we also asked this question: what is the estimate total monthly household income at the household level? That is, a collection of each and every person in that household who's earning an income. And we can see roughly more than 2/3 of Kenyans earn less than 10,000. So I'll invite Tom just to
Thanks.
talk about the survey results. Thank
Sorry,
you.
just before, thank you very much, Elliot. Just because we didn't do this as we were starting up. All our visitors, will you just give us your name and what media house you're from? And whether it's your first time to be here or not?
Evans from Daily Nation.
Been here before? Thank you.
Will is from the Standard.
Have you been here before? Just tell me if it's your first time or not.
No, I've been here before.
Good. Cass, first time? No.
First time.
Not the first time. You look familiar, yes?
Kevin 7 from Star Television Network. Not the first time.
Douglas Public not first.
Albert Mozinga, Barak FM, Media.
Boris Makame from Citizen. This is my first time.
Karibu.
Mark Namaswa, 18 News, first time here.
First time.
Achieving the TV, not first time.
Patrick Lanat, Daily Nation, first time.
Yes, behind the cameras, please.
Juma Citizen TV.
First time? No. Next?
Juma Citizen first time.
Yes?
Joseph Lelele TV, first time.
Sorry, from where? STS, yes, first time. Welcome.
Juma Citizen first time.
Sorry, from where?
Nation.
Nation. First time? Second. Thank you. Thank you. We don't have to ask the camera people. Last time at our briefing, almost everyone was for the first time. So you're all welcome. Now, just before we get to the results, I want to emphasize again that when we come to the presidential results, I have to beg you not to report these figures in terms of who would win the election. They have almost nothing to do with who will win the election. They have something, but not very much, for several reasons. The first reason is, and I know you all know this, but I just have to say it, to try and reduce the chance that these results will be misreported. First reason, we don't know who the presidential candidates are yet, especially on the opposition side. After we released our last results, I think it was in June or July last year, I think it was on Citizen, first week in August, when I was on air with Hussein Mohammed and Honorable Sakaja and Honorable Midiwo. And I was being criticized for the fact that we carried this question about Raila Odinga's political future. And I had to ask Honorable Sakaja whether I had missed something in the news, whether anybody in Jubilee was planning on competing for the presidential nomination within Jubilee. And he assured me and all viewers that without any doubt, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta would be their candidate for president and William Samoei Ruto would be their candidate for deputy. So even if they haven't handed in their nomination certificates to IEBC yet because it's not yet time, there's no real uncertainty on the incumbent side of the divide who the candidates for president and deputy are. But on the other side, we've had a few newcomers who've announced, Dr. Okwat, the lawyer Philip Murgor, and so on. I saw Nazlin Omar the other day saying she was going to contest. But as you know, the main uncertainty is on the CORD NASA opposition side. And until we have some clarity, these results do not give an indication of how many people would vote. We'll come to that later. Second reason is we did not, and I repeat, we did not limit our respondent selection to people who are registered voters, because it was still going on. In fact, when we started the field work on 9th of January, or 9th of January, this massive voter registration drive that finished yesterday, I believe, had not yet kicked off. So in our next survey, we can ask people if they're registered or not, even if we know the continuous registration goes until May 6th or 10th, I can't remember the date. And even if we had asked people, we would have no idea who would actually turn out to vote on election day. So I think the results are interesting. That's up to you people, the consumers, and then the public through you. But please don't say so-and-so is likely to win, or will win, or there's going to be a runoff, or there's not going to be. We don't know. So just try and restrain your write-ups or your broadcasts. I know sometimes you people are very accurate, and then it goes to your editors and wanawika chumvi. Okay. Our first question, we asked people, as Ellie said, on political party alignment. And let's make it very clear again. We did not go out looking for any particular proportion of evangelical Christians or people who had finished secondary or people who were aligned to any particular party. These results were extracted from this question based on a national random sample. Interesting that nearly 1 in 5 of the people in our sample said they were either undecided as to which party or coalition to support, or at least as of now, they were not supporting any. So I would think that in addition to turnout efforts, concentration of campaigning in the weeks and several months ahead would be concentrating on those people. The distribution across the political landscape, unsurprising, we get almost 9 out of 10 Kenyans in Central who prefer to align themselves with Jubilee. Sorry. And that proportion decreases all the way down to just 16% in Nyanza as a region. As we've said before, we cannot give you results by county because our sample is too small. If we had a sample of 15 or 20,000, we could probably do that. But with a sample of 2,000, only for Nairobi, which was a region before, a province, and now it's a county. But even as we showed then, we only have 217 respondents in Nairobi, so that makes a pretty high margin of error. But nevertheless, keeping in mind that margin of error, these results basically reflect what you know already. Where's the strength of Jubilee, and where's the strength of the opposition? Another thing which I find interesting here is that the plurality, that is the highest proportion of our respondents by region who are undecided, are in Western. Why is that? Why is it that nearly 1 in 5 of our respondents in Western haven't made up their minds? Actually, and support none is another 20%. So it's really 4 out of 10 people in Western are not aligned with any political party or coalition. Is there anybody here from Western who can explain that to me? Ellie, you're from there? But let's force the media to give us the interpretation. Think about it. And the trend analysis going back to the first time we asked this question at the beginning of 2014, we don't see too much difference over the last 3 years. However, from our last household survey in mid last year up to now, we see a slight drop, hardly outside the margin of error for Jubilee, a little bit of increase with the opposition, so that what was a 14% gap is now an 11% gap. Let's see where this goes. No major change. Now, we asked people, for those who identified with any party or coalition, why they do so. What's the main reason? It's a single response. And we get a couple of very interesting contrasts. And we've highlighted them. So that people who identify with Jubilee are more than twice as likely to mention they identify with Jubilee because of development, the development record of the government. Now, it's not surprising, to me anyway, that far more of them do that because the opposition is not controlling the national government. That's not to say that at the county level, CORD or opposition governors cannot get credit for development. But everyone knows, even with the new constitution and devolution, the main prize in this country is power in the national government. And if we come down to the second biggest contrast, accountability, ending impunity for violations of one type or another, we get 10 times more opposition supporters saying that's why they support their party or coalition. 20% of them versus only 2% of people in because those in national power have got more ability both to promote development and to misuse the power that they have. And we have all been hearing how much noise the opposition has been making about corruption within the government, other human rights abuses such as extrajudicial killings, especially at the coast and northeastern and so on. So the fact that there's an 18% gap with regard to that reason is not so surprising. Very little difference. I'm a little bit surprised that there's no real difference in devolution, as much as the opposition has been at their rallies and so on, saying that only we can protect devolution and strengthen it. But in a single mention question, now remember, we did not read all of these off and ask people, do you think your party supports it or promotes it or not? People only had one answer. So it very well may be that if we asked people specifically, everyone, about devolution, we would get a bigger contrast than we got here. And then we asked everybody this: whether or not you support any political party or coalition, do you think there is any political party in Kenya that genuinely represents the interests of ordinary people? And we get, for total, on the far left, 4 out of 10 Kenyans who say no, and 4 out of 10 who say yes. Now we get slightly more positives from Jubilee supporters, half, than we do from opposition supporters, 44%. But if I were a Kenyan Donald Trump, I would say, hey, there's a room for a new party in this country. Only half of Kenyans are excited about the parties even that they identify with. It's like there's a net, a goal in a football ground and no goalkeeper. For half of Kenyans are looking for something else. Have any of you thought of registering your own political party? Maybe this is your big chance. Bwana Kajilwa? Now, if you interview people from political parties, officials, and ask, why is it, do you think there's so many Kenyans who are not inclined, at least in a survey interview, and I don't think people would lie about this, there's nothing criminal or embarrassing about being aligned to a party, and we didn't ask if you're a member, nor have we asked, are you planning on participating in party nominations? That will come in our next survey. It's just, unajifahamisha uko karibu nao, au na mkono chama fulani, au muungano fulani. And half of Kenyans are saying no. All right, now we come to the next set of results on preferred political futures of prominent leaders. And the first question we asked here was, how likely do you think it is that each of the following individuals will ever be elected as president of Kenya? And we read these names off. Now, if somebody's going to complain that I didn't read Ellie's name off, or I didn't read Andrew's name off, you can take me to court. But these are the names we read off. And we gave them 3 choices. Was it very likely, somewhat likely, or not at all likely? Not sure, we didn't ask, but some people said sina hakika. And one thing I want to point out, and you'll remember it, or you'll remind me to say it again in a few minutes. This question came after the question about who would you vote for as president if the election was held now, because we didn't want to remind people of any names until we had finished that question. We didn't want to plant seeds in somebody's head or in their mouth. So this question came almost at the very end of the questionnaire. And you can see that the current deputy president and the former prime minister were mentioned about equally in terms of having a very likely chance of becoming president someday. We didn't say in the next election, we didn't mention, we just said ever. Hata uchaguzi wa 2027 ama nini. And we also know that whereas a couple of these people have expressed an interest in running this year, many of them have made it clear that they're running for other positions or they're not running at all. I think everybody's going to be running for something. But of course, Senator Gideon Moi, Governor Joho, Governor Mutua, Governor Kidero, aspirant Martha Karua, have all announced they're running for other positions. So let's not confuse, look very carefully at the wording of the question, ever. Now, next we come to the question that maybe caused me the most difficulty last time, about the political options for the former prime minister. And we asked this same question that we've been asking since right after the 2013 election, although as many of you know, or you all should know after all of the noise last time, the first 3 times we ran this question, it was paid for, drafted and paid for by Radio Africa, by the Star. They owned it, they published it. After 3 surveys, early in 2014, they said, the numbers are not changing, so we're going to drop it. But my former colleague then, who was working with me, we decided, let's just see, as we move forward towards the election, if these numbers are going to change at all. Here you can see about half we're saying that Raila should go ahead and contest the presidency if he wants to, and if his party supports him. And here we show those same figures on the far left, and then we divide by Jubilee and opposition supporters. Should have put Cord and NASA there. Stroke NASA, we'll fix that. I can do that. Whoops. Well, I'll do that afterwards. And you can see about 4 out of 10 Jubilee supporters would prefer that he retire now. Only 8% of Cord supporters would like him to retire now. Now, those who want him to retire, we didn't ask the reasons. So for Jubilee supporters, we don't know, for example, whether they would like him to retire because they think he's the biggest potential threat to Uhuru Kenyatta's re-election, or we see a very dramatic change in the numbers. After 3.5 years, we see support for the Prime Minister contesting on the far right jumping up by about 40%, from 35% last June to, as you saw a minute ago, to nearly half. What could explain that? Anyone offer a guess? You people cover these things day in and day out. Ellie and I are just sitting in the office crunching numbers and designing questionnaires. So my former colleague, Victor Rateng, who suggested in February and May of 2014, even though the Star was dropping the question, let's just continue asking it and see if it changes. Now remember, the last time especially, and even the time before that, as I said earlier, IPSOS and Dr. Tom Wolfe were very aggressively attacked from the ODM Cord side. Why are we putting all this emphasis on Raila's retirement? The one who should retire is that old Mzungu from IPSOS. Afadhali atanguli Raila kwenda usafuni. But my former colleague was correct in his guess that as we approach the election, these numbers will likely change. And they may continue to change. That's one of the biggest changes in a result that we've been tracking that we've ever recorded, I think, Ellie. Okay, and then in all of the hullabaloo that occurred after we released this last time, I was on air, as I said earlier, on Citizen, and that same evening I was invited out to KTN, and I was on air with Senator